In step 24 of this IPL course on self-awareness, we look at the next two questions for filtering new inputs. And these are, is it a fact or is it an opinion? And the next question is to do with how-to processes. Is what you're being told new and is it relevant?
Okay, so we're slowly building up our questions. Question one, that the subconscious is going to ask before it decides what to do with it is, does this come from a known source? If so, it gives it a certain score, a certain potential. Is it about a known subject? In other words, your mind, this person's mind, is interested in certain subjects. So is it a known subject that's been approved as being interesting? Or is it about an irrelevant subject, which your mind isn't interested in? If you're studying maths and physics, and it's information about the archaeology of the kingdom of Uruk, then you're going to be less likely to listen to it. On the other hand, if you're interested in ancient Sumerian literature, and it's about Ur or Uruk, you're going to say, yay, I'm interested in that. Is it about cuneiform tablets? Go for it. Yes, please. And you'll give it an approval. So it can be all sorts of things. Now, the next question that is on the guards list is it a fact? Is this input a fact? Or is it an opinion? So a fact might be a cat has 4 legs. So the subject is cats. And I might say to you, or the input will say, there's a special sort of cat called a Manx cat, and Manx cats don't have tails. Go figure. How is that? So that would be a fact about cats. Now, on the other hand, I could also say, or the input could also say, this is a fact about cats, and I don't think cats are as good as dogs. You know, they're just not such good companions. That's an opinion. And your guard, your mind will have set up certain filters to say, am I interested in new facts? Or am I interested in new opinions? Now, here's where it starts to get interlinked, because if the source is a dictionary or Wikipedia or something, that's a known source for facts. So you'll go look in Wikipedia for facts and it'll get a tick. On the other hand, you don't look in Wikipedia for opinions. They try and make that content as opinion-free as they can. But if you're watching a political broadcast or something, you may be interested in the opinions of one politician over another politician. And depending on the source, so right now in America, there's a president called Donald Trump. Now, some people are interested in his opinions. So the source is Donald Trump. It's an opinion of Donald Trump. And in that case, you might give it a tick. On the other hand, if you're of a different political persuasion, he's the last guy whose opinions you're interested in. So you won't give it a tick. In fact, you'll give it a cross and you'll dump it into the waste bin. Now, again, depending on your political persuasion, you may say, yay, dumped an opinion of Donald Trump, or yay, found a new opinion of Donald Trump. He's suggesting to me how I should think about, building a wall between America and Canada, or whatever it is, his next particular thing that he uses to get votes. So is it a fact? Now, the next question is it a procedure? In other words, how to do something. So the inputs that are coming in are how to do something, how to mend a tap. Now, if at the time you're interested and you are looking on the internet, let's say, for how to mend a tap, then when that input comes in, is it about a tap? Is it relevant to taps at that particular moment in time? Is it relevant to taps? You'll give it a tick. Yes, great. On the other hand, you're on YouTube and it's all telling you how to build a paper airplane or something. You're not interested in building paper airplanes at that time, so it doesn't get through. It gets rejected. Now, here's the point. Your mind, what it lets in and where it categorizes it, varies very much with time from moment to moment. So your attention, it's what's called your focus. So a given moment of the day, hold on, I've got to hang that one up. So coming back to this subject of relevance, the guard will have got a message to say, if anyone comes along who knows about how to mend taps, we've got a couple of leaking taps inside our mental fortress, please let them straight in. Okay, so depending on what the procedure is about, it'll either go in or not. If it's not relevant, it has to be relevant to get a tick. If it's not relevant, it goes into the waste bin. Now, the other thing is talking about facts. Do you remember I talked to you earlier on about what your education was and how people have been telling you, for example, what's the longest river in the world, or what's the capital of Chad, or whatever it is, what's the atomic weight of uranium, and so on. They may have told you, you need to learn this stuff, you've got to know it because there's going to be an exam, so you've got to do it, all right? So that your subconscious sets certain flags and weightings to the potential that the guards are told to give. And those depend on two things. Needs, running out of space really, it is to do with needs and wants. So your subconscious has been told by your sort of higher mind to look out for any piece of input that's coming along that fits particular needs. So if you're studying for an exam and it said if facts come in that are new facts about, let's say you're studying for a chemistry exam, new facts about the atomic weight of uranium, and you already think, well, maybe that'll be relevant to the exam question that's coming up, you're going to give the atomic weight of uranium higher potential on the potential score out of 10. So the mere fact that there's a need for it, as has been expressed up here, you're going to let that piece of information go through. So it'll go through, it'll pass a test that's asked by the guard, and it'll go through into your unconscious mind as a fact. Now, the thing is, what the mind has to do then, what your unconscious mind ought to do, but doesn't really have very good skills to do, is decide where to keep that fact. So the facts about stuff you learned at school get stored in a rather random sort of way. Sometimes they're stored pertinent to certain subjects, but sometimes they go into what's called general knowledge. And there's some weird thing that people are interested to see what general knowledge other people have. So in Britain, there's a thing called pub quizzes. And in America, there's some TV show, the $64,000 question or whatever. And someone sits there and they're asked more and more obscure questions about general knowledge. You know, who was the 14th, who was the wife of the 14th president of the United States, and where was she born, or something like that. And if you've got that sort of general knowledge and you get the question right, then you know you're on your way to making the money, or not. So where facts and opinions are stored, it goes through and they're stored in what you might think of as databases. I'm really pressing myself for space here. I'm going to put it here as a database. So the fact is approved and it goes through into a database. Or the how to do something may or may not go into a database because it's quite probable you'll want to use it pretty quickly. Now, if it's general knowledge about how to do something, for example, how to make uranium or how to make an atom bomb or something like that, that you would learn in science, then it'll go into this database. On the other hand, if it was something urgent that you're being told to look for, so if up here the instruction is look out for anything that fits a very short-term need, because that needs to go straight into the conscious mind as a priority. So you can see that a fact is dependent on when it arrives and how important it is at that time and what routing it has. Again, coming back to your education, your academic education, is just a ceaseless stream of facts and how to do things. Stuff about uranium and how to make uranium, or it could be, if it's a cooking lesson, stuff about omelets and how to make an omelet, whatever it is. But unless you're going to make an omelet that night, if you're on a cookery course, it's how to bake a cake and what the ratios are. That goes into this database over here. And it may or may not be used one day. So what actually happens is during your education, a lot of purposeless facts and procedures go into your mental database. Okay, so I'm going to pause at that point, because as you can see, I'm not trying to swamp you with what all these questions are, but we're starting to see the complexity of how the guard is getting changing instructions all the time as to what to let through. And the other thing is, at certain times of day, your mind changes the guard. So when you go into the office in the morning, the guard is a kind of office-based dude who's letting in certain facts and certain how to do things. But come, lunchtime or 7 o'clock in the evening, whenever it is, the guard gets changed. And it's a guard who's much more interested in helping you have fun and so on. So the questions, there are, let's say the 10 questions, but they vary, and the way the answers are scored and the way where they go in your mind varies according to the time of day, and especially according to how you're feeling. And it's really important when you're trying to teach someone something. This is why I'm bringing this back now to why am I doing this. If you're trying to teach someone something, you need to try and set everything up so that the information you provide is going to get past the 10 questions that the person you're talking, the guard at the gate of the person you're talking to, is you know who that guard is, you know the kind of things of instructions they're going to have, and you shape your material to try and get through that gate. And it's to do with the mood, the setting, the overall atmosphere, the way you say the thing, and so on and so on. All these, and the time that you do it, all these are factors which will enable the information to go through. And what this is all about is if it doesn't go through, they're not going to learn, are they? The person's not going to learn. So to have any chance of the person you're talking to learning something, this input has to be shaped accordingly. Okay, again, another pause. This is complicated stuff. Self-awareness is all new for you. You haven't been taught it before. It's going to take a bit of time, which is why I'm going at it slowly. And to some extent, I'm repeating myself. But again, that is another part of learning. It's tell them what you're going to say it, tell them what you've told them. These are all parts of learning. Okay, peace and love. I'm going to take a break.
These questions are conscious analytical thinking questions, or CAT. Try applying them to something you've read or watched in the last day and analyze it from the point of view of these first 4 questions.